In early February 2025, a quiet home in Galveston County, Texas, became the focus of growing concern. A woman who lived there had stopped responding to messages and calls. Days passed without any contact. A neighbor noticed the silence and reported it. A request was made for a welfare check. When deputies arrived at the residence on 15th Street in the community of Backcliff, nothing outside appeared unusual. The home was closed. The lights were off. There were no immediate signs of activity, but once deputies made entry, it became clear that something inside was not right. Welcome back to Dark Case Storytime. We bring you new true crime documentaries every single week, so make sure you are subscribed and all notifications are turned on. And now let's get straight into today's video. The welfare check took place during the first week of February 2025. Deputies with the Galveston County Sheriff's Office were asked to check on 61-year-old Tammy King. A neighbor reported that no one had heard from her for several days. This was considered unusual. Tammy was known to be responsive. She maintained regular contact with people in her life. When deputies arrived, they attempted to make contact from outside the home. There was no response. Entry was made shortly afterward. Inside, deputies located Tammy in her bedroom. Her time on this earth was ended. The home did not appear undisturbed. Personal items were scattered. Property that would normally be secured was missing. Based on the condition of the residence, investigators immediately suspected that this was not a natural passing. Major crimes investigators were called to the scene. The area was secured. An evidence collection process began. As detectives worked through the home, they also began asking a key question: who was the last person to see or speak with Tammy King? That question would soon narrow the investigation in an unexpected direction. Tammy King was 61 years old at the time her life came to a close. She lived in the community of Backcliff, Texas, in a modest home on 15th Street. Those who knew her described her as independent and routine-oriented. She handled her own finances. She maintained her home. She stayed in regular contact with people close to her. Tammy was also the primary caregiver for her granddaughter, Tara King. Tara lived in the home with her. At the time, Tara was a high school student. Tammy was responsible for overseeing her daily schedule. That included school attendance and household rules. Tammy was also in a romantic relationship. Her boyfriend was familiar with her routines and patterns. He would later become one of the first people to raise concern when he could not reach her. From the outside, the household appeared stable. There was no known history of police involvement at the address. No recent emergency calls, no public signs of crisis, but investigators would later learn that tension inside the home had been building, and that those tensions centered on control, boundaries, and expectations, especially where school attendance and relationships were concerned. In the days leading up to the welfare check, Tammy King was last heard from midweek. She had spoken with people close to her. Nothing in those conversations suggested she planned to leave or go away. According to investigators, an argument had recently taken place inside the home. The disagreement involved Tammy and her granddaughter, Tara. The issue was school attendance. Tammy expected Tara to go to school. Tara did not want to. There was also reported tension surrounding Tara's relationship with her boyfriend, Uriah Urick. Tammy did not allow him to stay overnight in the home. This boundary caused ongoing friction. The final confirmed contact with Tammy occurred the day before her life was ended. After that, calls went unanswered. Messages were not returned. No one heard from her again. At the same time, activity began occurring that Tammy would not have normally allowed. Financial transactions appeared. Property inside the home was disturbed. But at that point, no one outside the house was yet aware of those changes. To neighbors and friends, it simply appeared that Tammy had gone silent. And as that silence stretched on, concern continued to grow. As investigators worked through the home, they began documenting items that appeared out of place. Drawers were open. Personal belongings were not where they would normally be kept. Property that Tammy King typically secured was missing. This suggested that activity had taken place inside the home after her life came to a close. Attention then turned to Tammy's financial accounts. Detectives reviewed recent transactions. What they found immediately stood out. Multiple digital transfers had been made from Tammy's account to another individual. These transactions occurred around the time contact with Tammy stopped. Several transfers were successful. Others were attempted but did not go through. The recipient of those funds was Tammy's granddaughter. This was not consistent with Tammy's usual financial behavior. Investigators also learned that Tammy's phone, purse, and other personal items could not be located. Combined with the condition of the home, the situation now pointed toward intentional activity rather than an unexplained absence. As these findings came together, detectives began building a timeline. They needed to know who had access to the home, who had motive, and who had been present during the final days. That focus would soon narrow. Investigators identified two people who could no longer be located. Tammy King's granddaughter, Tara King, and Tara's boyfriend, Uriah Urick, were not where authorities expected them to be. Family members had not heard from them. Friends reported receiving unusual messages. Some said they had been asked for rides. Others said money had been offered in exchange for help. At this stage, Tara and Uriah were classified as persons of interest. Investigators attempted to locate them through known addresses and contacts. Those efforts were unsuccessful. At the same time, detectives continued reviewing digital evidence. They traced account activity. They examined communication records. They spoke with individuals who had interacted with the pair after Tammy's life was ended. What emerged was a pattern of movement, temporary stays, and repeated attempts to leave the area. Based on this information, authorities issued alerts and expanded the search. What had begun as a local investigation in Backcliff was now moving beyond Galveston County, and the focus of the case had fully shifted from what happened inside the home to where two teenagers had gone afterward. As the search expanded, investigators relied heavily on digital records. Financial data provided one of the clearest timelines. Transfers from Tammy King's accounts were traced to Tara King. These transactions occurred shortly after Tammy's life was ended. Some transfers were successful. Others were attempted in much larger amounts but failed. Detectives also reviewed communication records. Messages sent from Tara's social media accounts raised concern. Several people reported being contacted with requests for help. Destinations outside Texas were mentioned. At the same time, witnesses reported in-person interactions. Friends and acquaintances described Tara and Uriah arriving unexpectedly. They stayed briefly, then moved on. In more than one location, the pair altered their appearance. Hair was cut. Hair was dyed. Investigators later recovered evidence consistent with these changes at a temporary residence. Bank records from Uriah Urick also showed incoming transfers from Tara. This supported the theory that the two were acting together. As detectives mapped these movements, a clear pattern formed. The pair were not hiding in one place. They were attempting to move quickly, and they appeared focused on leaving the region entirely. With each new lead, authorities narrowed the possible direction of travel. In the days following the welfare check, Tara King and Uriah Urick continued moving between short-term locations. When those efforts failed, they shifted direction. Eventually, investigators learned that the two had traveled several hundred miles south. Their movements brought them to Laredo, near the United States-Mexico border. How they arrived there was pieced together through witness statements and records. At least one individual later admitted to assisting them during this period. By this point, The case had drawn the involvement of multiple agencies. Information was shared. Leads were coordinated. The focus was now on locating the pair before they could move again. The flight that followed Tammy King's life coming to a close was nearing its end. But the legal consequences were only beginning. On February 9, 2025, the search came to an end. Law enforcement located Tara King and Uriah Urick in Laredo, Texas. The arrests were carried out with the assistance of multiple agencies, including the Galveston County Sheriff's Office and a federal task force. Both teenagers were taken into custody without incident. At the time of their arrest, investigators confirmed that they had been on the move for several days. They had not returned to Galveston County since leaving. Their sudden disappearance following Tammy King's life coming to a close now appeared intentional.
2 teenagers have been charged with capital murder, and they've been denied bond this morning in the Galveston County Courthouse. 17-year-old Tara King and her 18-year-old boyfriend Uriah Urick are accused of killing King's grandmother in her Bay Cliff home last Wednesday. Court records say that Tara was upset because her grandmother would not let Urick spend the night. Then the couple allegedly shot the grandmother, stole money and guns from her home. Police say the grandmother had no clothes on and had been shot in the head. The couple was caught in Laredo over the weekend. Right now, both are sitting in the Galveston County Jail.
And we're learning disturbing new allegations about this alleged crime. 17-year-old Tara King and her 18-year-old boyfriend Uriah Urick are accused of killing King's grandmother, Tammy King, in her Bay Cliff home last Wednesday. And according to court records, those who know the teens telling investigators Tara was upset with her grandmother because she wouldn't let Tara's boyfriend spend the night. The couple is then accused of shooting the grandmother in the head, stealing money from her bank account via Cash App, and stealing several guns from the home. Tips led investigators to their location in Laredo yesterday. Both teens are being held without bond.
As the pair were transported back to Galveston County, detectives continued gathering information. They interviewed individuals who had interacted with them while they were on the run. One of those individuals would later be identified as Travis Hodge. Investigators determined that Hodge had assisted the pair during their flight. He was later arrested and charged in connection with helping them evade law enforcement. With all primary suspects now in custody, the investigation entered its next phase. The focus shifted from locating the individuals to determining criminal responsibility. Both Tara King and Uriah Urick were charged with capital murder under Texas law. The charge reflected investigators' belief that Tammy King's life was ended in connection with theft. Uriah Urick's case proceeded to trial first. In November 2025, a jury found him guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Tara King's case followed a different path. Rather than going to trial, she entered a guilty plea. In early 2026, she was formally sentenced. She also received an automatic life sentence without the possibility of parole. Travis Hodge faced separate charges related to his role after the fact. Those charges included hindering apprehension and additional offenses. With sentencing complete, the legal process concluded for the primary defendants. The investigation that began with a welfare check had ended with permanent outcomes for all involved. Tammy King's life came to a close inside her home in Backcliff in early February 2025. What began as concern over unanswered calls became a case that unfolded across hundreds of miles. The investigation revealed planning, movement, and attempts to escape responsibility. In the end, those actions led to permanent legal consequences, and with a reminder of how quickly a private household conflict can escalate into irreversible loss.